I love you, but if we have kids, I'd prefer they have my ex's genes. He's just more attractive, she said while planning our wedding. I said, sounds logical. Canceled everything the next day while she was at her final dress fitting. She called confused, asking what was wrong. I said, go have beautiful kids with someone else. We were sitting with wedding brochures spread across the table like a second job. Venues, flowers, guest lists, and the future, everything mapped out in neat little boxes. She was excited, talking fast, showing me photos of dresses and smiling like this was the happiest season of her life. I was tired, but I was happy too, because I thought we were building something real. Then she said it. Not in anger, not during a fight. She said it the way people confess a preference about paint color. She told me she loved me, but if we ever had kids, she would prefer they had her ex's genes because he was more attractive. She even tried to soften it with a laugh, like it was a practical thought. Like I should appreciate her honesty, like it was normal to plan a family while quietly wishing your fiancé wasn't the father. I stared at her and waited for her to correct herself, to realize what she'd just done. But she kept talking, explaining how it didn't mean anything, how she was just being realistic, how it was only genetics. Like love and respect were separate rooms in the same house. In that moment, I understood something painful. She didn't see me as a partner. She saw me as comfort, safety, a stable plan she could decorate while still worshiping someone else. So I nodded and said, sounds logical. My voice was calm, because the decision had already been made inside me. That night, while she slept, I opened my laptop and canceled everything I could. The venue deposit, the photographer, the catering tasting. I emailed the guests that the wedding was postponed indefinitely. I packed the small things she'd already brought to my place into boxes. I didn't do it to punish her. I did it because I refused to sign a contract with someone who spoke about me like I was the backup option. The next day, she was at her final dress fitting when she called, excited at first, then confused. She said the venue wasn't answering. She said her mom was asking questions. She asked what was going on, like the world had suddenly changed without her permission. I waited until she finished, then I said, nothing is wrong. You told me the truth. She tried to backpedal, tried to cry, tried to turn it into a misunderstanding. I didn't argue. I just said quietly, go have beautiful kids with someone else. And then I hung up, because I wasn't going to compete with a fantasy for the rest of my life. My name is Jake Morrison, and I own Morrison's Custom Auto Shop in Millbrook, New Hampshire. It's a small town where everyone knows everyone's business, and mine had just become the talk of the coffee shops. Anna Whitman, my ex-fiancée, worked at the Whitman Gallery downtown, a pretentious little art space that catered to weekend tourists and locals with more money than taste. Her family had money. Old New England money that came with expectations and a certain way of looking at people like me. I should have seen it coming. Anna's mother, Margaret Whitman, had made it clear from day one that I wasn't quite what she'd had in mind for her daughter. Not educated enough, not refined enough. Too much grease under my fingernails and too little respect for culture. But Anna had seemed different. She'd come into my shop 2 years ago with a broken-down BMW, and we talked for hours while I worked on her engine. She seemed genuine then, interested in my work, curious about my life. I guess I was wrong about a lot of things. The ex she'd mentioned was Rick Brennan, a real estate agent who drove a pristine Mercedes and wore suits that cost more than most people's rent. He was everything I wasn't. Smooth, polished, connected to all the right families in town. They dated for 3 years before she met me, and apparently she'd never really gotten over him. 3 days after I canceled the wedding, I was under the hood of a Chevy Silverado when my best friend Tommy walked into the shop. Tommy Russo ran Russo's Bar on Main Street, and if there was gossip to be heard in Millbrook, he heard it first. Jake, he said, wiping his hands on a bar towel he always carried. You doing okay? I didn't look up from the engine. Never better. Because half the town is talking about what happened with Anna. Let them talk. Tommy leaned against the workbench. Her mother's been telling everyone you had a breakdown, says you couldn't handle the pressure of marrying into a good family. That made me pause. I straightened up and looked at him. She said that? At the country club, according to my bartender Sarah, loud enough for half the dining room to hear. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Not hurt, I was past that. Something sharper. Margaret Whitman was rewriting history, making me the villain in a story where I'd been the one betrayed. In a town like Millbrook, reputation mattered, and mine was being shredded by a woman who'd never liked me anyway. What else? I asked. Tommy hesitated. Anna's been seen around town with Rick. Coffee at Miller's Cafe, dinner at that fancy place on Elm Street. People are putting 2 and 2 together. How long? How long what? How long have they been seeing each other? Tommy's expression told me everything. Jake, maybe you should just... How long, Tommy? He sighed. Sarah saw them together at the hotel bar 3 weeks ago, before you called off the wedding. 3 weeks. While we were addressing invitations and tasting wedding cakes, Anna had been having drinks with her ex. While I was working overtime to pay for the honeymoon she wanted, she was probably telling Rick how she wished their future children could have his genes instead of mine. I went back to work on the Silverado, but my hands were shaking, not from sadness, from rage, pure, clean rage that felt better than the confusion and hurt I'd been carrying around. Jake, Tommy said quietly, what are you going to do? I didn't answer right away. I finished checking the oil, closed the hood, and wiped my hands on a shop rag. Outside, I could see Main Street through the garage windows, the gallery where Anna worked, the cafe where she'd been meeting Rick, the country club where her mother was destroying my reputation. I'm going to remind this town that there are consequences for treating people like garbage, I said finally. Tommy looked worried. Don't do anything stupid. I smiled, but it wasn't a nice smile. Don't worry. Everything I'm going to do will be very, very smart. The first thing I learned about revenge is that information is everything. The second thing I learned is that in a small town, information flows like water. You just have to know where the pipes are. Mrs. Eleanor Hutchins lived in the house next to mine, and she'd been watching the neighborhood for 73 years. She knew who came and went, who fought with whom, and who was sleeping where they shouldn't be. Most people found her annoying. I found her useful. I brought her a cup of coffee and sat on her porch the morning after my conversation with Tommy. Terrible shame about your wedding, dear, she said, rocking in her chair, though I can't say I'm surprised. No? She gave me a look over her reading glasses. That girl was never right for you. Too much like her mother. Thinks she's better than everyone else? What do you mean? Mrs. Hutchins leaned forward conspiratorially. I've seen that Rick Fellow's car parked outside the gallery after hours. More than once. And not recently. This has been going on for months. Months. The word hit me like a punch to the gut, but I kept my expression neutral. Are you sure? Honey, I've been watching this town since before you were born. I know every car that belongs and every car that doesn't. That fancy Mercedes of his has been a regular visitor. I sipped my coffee and let her talk. Mrs. Hutchins was like a newspaper. Once you got her started, the information just kept coming. And another thing, she continued, Anna's been getting packages delivered to her apartment. Expensive ones, jewelry boxes from that fancy store in Portsmouth. Now, I know you're a good man, Jake, but I also know what a mechanic makes. Those weren't coming from you. No, they weren't. I'd been saving for months to buy Anna a decent engagement ring. Apparently someone else had been buying her jewelry the whole time. Mrs. Hutchins, I said carefully, if someone wanted to know more about what's been going on around town, who would they talk to? She smiled. It was the smile of someone who'd been waiting her whole life for this question. Well, she said, there's Betty at the post office. She knows everyone's business. There's Carol who works at the bank. She sees all the financial comings and goings. And there's my bridge club. We meet every Thursday at the community center. Your bridge club? Oh, yes. Margaret Whitman is a member, has been for years. Very chatty when she's had a few glasses of wine. I finished my coffee and stood up. Mrs. Hutchins, would you mind if I fixed that loose step on your front porch? I noticed it's been wobbling. She beamed. Why? That's very kind of you, Jake. No problem. Neighbors should look out for each other. The next stop was the post office. Betty Martinez had worked there for 20 years, and she knew everyone in town. More importantly, she knew everyone's mail patterns. Jake, she said when I walked in, I heard about the wedding. I'm so sorry. Thanks, Betty. Actually, I wanted to ask you something. I've been getting some weird mail lately. Bills and things that don't seem right. Has anyone been asking about my mail, or maybe redirecting things? Betty frowned. Not that I know of. But you know, it's funny you mention it. Anna came in a few weeks ago asking about forwarding services. Said she might be moving soon. Moving. She'd been planning to leave even before the wedding was called off. Did she say where? No, but she was asking about forwarding to a P.O. box. Said it was temporary while she looked for a new place. I thanked Betty and left, my mind racing. Anna had been planning an exit strategy. The wedding, the promises, the future we'd discussed. It had all been a lie. She'd been preparing to disappear with Rick, and I'd been the fool paying for the party. That evening, I drove to the Millbrook Inn, the nicest hotel in town. It was where out-of-town buyers stayed when they came to look at Rick's high-end properties. It was also where locals went when they wanted privacy. The desk clerk was a kid named Danny, who'd graduated high school with my younger brother. He recognized me immediately. "Hey, Jake, how's it going?" "Not bad, Danny. Listen, I'm trying to track down some receipts for my accountant. I think Anna might have charged some business dinners here to my credit card by mistake. Could you check your records for the last couple of months?" It was a lie, but Danny didn't know that. He pulled up the computer system and started typing. Morrison, here we go. Looks like there were several charges. Room service, bar tab, and... He paused, looking uncomfortable. "And what?" "Well, there's a room charge. From 3 weeks ago. But it's not under your name. It's under Rick Brennan's." "Bingo. Could you print that out for me? For my records?" Danny hesitated. "I'm not really supposed to." "Danny, someone's been using my credit card without permission. I just need to know what was charged so I can dispute it with the bank." He printed the receipt and handed it over. Room 237, charged to Rick Brennan's account, but with Anna Morrison listed as the second guest. The date was exactly 3 weeks ago, the same night Tommy had seen them at the hotel bar. I folded the receipt and put it in my wallet. "Thanks, Danny. I appreciate it." "No problem. And Jake, I'm sorry about what happened with the wedding. Anna was crazy to let you go." If only he knew. My last stop of the day was Russo's bar. Tommy was behind the bar, polishing glasses and getting ready for the dinner crowd. "You look like a man with a plan," he said when he saw me. "I'm a man with information," I replied, "and information is power." I told him what I'd learned. The months of secret meetings, the jewelry, the hotel room, the forwarding address. Tommy listened without interrupting, his expression getting darker with each detail. "Jesus, Jake, she really did a number on you." "The question is, what do I do about it?" Tommy set down the glass he'd been polishing. "You could expose her. Tell everyone what really happened." "I could, but that's not enough." "What do you mean?" I looked around the bar. It was still early, so we were alone except for one regular who was too drunk to pay attention to our conversation. "Anna and Rick think they're smarter than me," I said. "They think they can humiliate me and walk away without consequences. Anna's mother is telling everyone I had a breakdown, that I wasn't good enough for her precious daughter. Meanwhile, Anna's been cheating on me for months. So what's the plan?" I smiled. "I'm going to give this town a story they'll never forget. And when I'm done, Anna and Rick will wish they'd never heard my name." Tommy looked worried. "Jake, be careful. Don't do anything that'll land you in jail." "Don't worry," I said. "Everything I'm going to do is perfectly legal. I'm just going to make sure the truth comes out, all of it." I left the bar and drove home through the quiet streets of Millbrook. The town looked peaceful in the evening light, but I knew that beneath the surface, secrets were everywhere. Everyone had something to hide, something they didn't want their neighbors to know. Anna and Rick were about to learn that some secrets have a way of coming to light. And when they did, I was going to be there to watch their perfect little world burn down around them. The Whitman Gallery was hosting its monthly opening on Friday night. Anna had mentioned it weeks ago, back when we were still planning a future together. It was a big deal. Local artists, wine and cheese, all the important people in town showing up to see and be seen. I hadn't planned to go. But then I remembered something Anna had told me about her job. She'd been lying about her qualifications to get the position. Her degree was in communications, not art history like she'd told her boss, Richard Dalton. She'd been faking her expertise for 2 years, using Wikipedia and online articles to sound knowledgeable about the pieces they displayed. It was a small lie in the grand scheme of things. But small lies have a way of becoming big problems when the right person decides to expose them. I put on my best shirt and drove to the gallery. The place was packed. Millbrook's social elite mingled around abstract paintings and sculptures that looked like expensive accidents. Anna stood near the back, wearing a black dress I'd never seen before and jewelry that definitely hadn't come from me. She was talking to a group of women, probably explaining the deep meaning behind a canvas covered in random paint splatters. Rick was there too, standing by the wine table in a suit that cost more than my truck. He saw me first, and I watched his expression change from surprise to concern to something that might have been fear. Good. I grabbed a glass of wine and started mingling. The first person I talked to was Carol Brennan, Rick's aunt and one of the town's biggest gossips. "Jake," she said, looking surprised, "I didn't expect to see you here." "Anna invited me weeks ago," I said, which was technically true. "I figured I should support local art." "That's very mature of you, considering." "Considering what?" Carol looked uncomfortable. "Well, you know, the situation." "You mean the fact that Anna was cheating on me with your nephew while we were planning our wedding?" Carol's wine glass stopped halfway to her lips. What?" I pulled out my phone and showed her a photo of the hotel receipt. Room 237 at the Millbrook Inn, 3 weeks ago. Rick's credit card, Anna listed as the second guest. Carol stared at the screen, her face going pale. Where did you get this? Does it matter? The point is, everyone's been feeling sorry for Anna and treating me like the bad guy. But the truth is, she was planning to leave me for Rick all along. The wedding was just a convenient cover story. I walked away, leaving Carol standing there with her mouth open. I knew she'd be on the phone within an hour, spreading the news to everyone in her contact list. Next, I found Margaret Whitman near a sculpture that looked like a twisted coat hanger. She was holding court with several other women from the country club, no doubt continuing her campaign to paint me as an unstable loser who couldn't handle marrying into a good family. Mrs. Whitman, I said, approaching the group, lovely evening. She turned, and her expression immediately hardened. Jake, I'm surprised to see you here. Anna invited me. We may not be getting married, but we're still friends. How mature of you. I try to be. Actually, I wanted to thank you for setting the record straight about what happened between us. I know you've been telling people I had some kind of breakdown. Margaret's cheeks flushed slightly. I simply told people the truth as I understood it. Of course. And the truth is so important, don't you think? Like the truth about why I really called off the wedding. The other women were listening now, sensing drama. I'm not sure what you mean, Margaret said stiffly. Well, it wasn't because I couldn't handle marrying into your family. It was because Anna told me she wanted to have children with her ex-boyfriend instead of me. She said Rick was more attractive and she'd prefer her kids to have his genes. The silence that followed was deafening. Margaret's face went from pink to red to white. That's not... It's not what? Not true? Because I can play you the recording if you'd like. I started taping our conversations after she began acting strange. You know, for my own protection. I was bluffing about the recording, but Margaret didn't know that. She looked around at the other women, all of whom were staring at her with a mixture of shock and fascination. If you'll excuse me, she said quietly, and walked away. The women immediately started whispering among themselves. I knew the story would be all over town by morning, but I wasn't done yet. I found Richard Dalton, the gallery owner, standing near the main display. He was a thin, nervous man in his 60s who took his reputation as a cultural authority very seriously. Mr. Dalton, I said, extending my hand. Jake Morrison. Anna's mentioned you many times. Ah, yes, the fiancé. Or rather, the former fiancé. I'm sorry things didn't work out. Thank you. Actually, I wanted to ask you something. Anna's been so modest about her background. I know she has a degree in art history, but she never talks about where she studied. Dalton looked confused. Art history? No. Anna's degree is in communications. She was very upfront about that when I hired her. She said she was passionate about art, but was still learning the academic side. I feigned surprise. Really? That's strange. She's been telling people she has a degree in art history. Just last week, she was explaining to the Hendersons about the influence of post-impressionism on modern abstract work. She sounded so knowledgeable. Dalton's expression darkened. She's been representing herself as having formal training in art history? Well, I don't want to get her in trouble. Maybe I misunderstood. But the damage was done. I could see Dalton's mind working, probably remembering all the times Anna had spoken with authority about subjects she'd only read about online. I excused myself and walked toward the back of the gallery, where Anna was still holding court with her group of admirers. As I approached, I could hear her explaining the complex symbolism in a painting that looked like someone had spilled coffee on a canvas. The artist is clearly exploring themes of urban alienation, she was saying. You can see the influence of Rothko in the color palette, but there's also a distinctly postmodern sensibility that speaks to contemporary anxieties about technological displacement. It was complete nonsense, but her audience was nodding along like she was revealing the secrets of the universe. That's fascinating, I said, joining the group. Anna, I had no idea your degree in communications had prepared you so well for art analysis. Anna's face went white. The group turned to look at me, then back at her. What? Your degree in communications from UNH? I was just talking to Mr. Dalton about it. Anna's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. She'd been caught, and everyone in the group could see it. I think there's been a misunderstanding, she said weakly. Has there? Because you've been telling people you have a degree in art history. But that's not true, is it? The group was staring now, realizing they'd been listening to someone who had no idea what she was talking about. Jake, please, Anna whispered. Not here. Where then? At the hotel with Rick? Oh wait, everyone already knows about that. Anna's face crumpled. She looked around at the faces staring at her, some shocked, some disgusted, some simply entertained by the drama. "I need some air," she said, and practically ran toward the exit. I followed her outside, where she was standing by her car, crying. "How could you do that to me?" she sobbed. "In front of everyone? How could I do that to you?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Anna, you cheated on me for months. You lied about wanting a future with me while planning to leave with another man. You let your mother destroy my reputation while you played the victim, and you want to know how I could embarrass you. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. And now everyone knows the truth?" Anna wiped her eyes, smearing her mascara. "What do you want from me, Jake? What will it take for you to leave me alone?" I looked at her standing there in her expensive dress and jewelry, crying because her lies had finally caught up with her. 6 months ago, I would have felt sorry for her. Now I felt nothing but cold satisfaction. "I want you to understand that actions have consequences," I said. "You treated me like I was disposable, like my feelings didn't matter, like I was just a placeholder until something better came along. That's not true. It is true, and now you're going to live with the consequences." I walked back to my truck, leaving her standing in the parking lot. As I drove away, I could see people streaming out of the gallery, probably eager to spread the news about what they'd just witnessed. By tomorrow, everyone in Millbrook would know the truth about Anna Whitman and Rick Brennan. They'd know about the affair, the lies, and the way they'd tried to make me look like the villain in their story. But I wasn't done yet. Not even close. The real fun was just getting started. By Saturday morning, my phone was ringing nonstop. Tommy called first. "Jesus Christ, Jake. What did you do last night?" I told the truth. "The whole town's talking about it. Carol Brennan called my bar at midnight wanting to know if I had more information about the affair. Margaret Whitman apparently left the country club this morning and hasn't been seen since, and Anna called in sick to work." I was in my shop, working on a transmission rebuild, but I was having trouble concentrating. Every few minutes, someone would drive by slowly, trying to get a look at me through the garage windows. "Good," I said. "Maybe now people will stop treating me like I'm the crazy one." "And Rick? What about him? He's been calling around town, trying to do damage control. Word is he's telling people you faked those hotel receipts." I laughed. "Let him try to prove that." But Tommy sounded worried. "Jake, you need to be careful. Rick's got connections in this town. Money, influence. He could make things difficult for you." "Let him try." After I hung up, I went back to work, but my mind was elsewhere. Rick Brennan thought he could use his money and connections to make this problem go away. He was about to learn that some problems don't disappear just because you throw money at them. Around noon, a black Mercedes pulled into my shop's parking lot. Rick got out, straightening his tie like he was preparing for a business meeting. He was trying to look confident, but I could see the tension in his shoulders. "Jake," he said, walking into the garage, "we need to talk." I didn't look up from the transmission. "Do we? This has gone far enough. You've made your point." "Have I? What point is that?" Rick moved closer, lowering his voice. "Look, I know you're hurt. Anna told me what happened between you two. The thing about the kids, the jeans, that was thoughtless of her. But this public humiliation campaign you're running isn't helping anyone." I finally looked up at him. Rick Brennan was everything I wasn't. Tall, polished, probably never had grease under his fingernails in his life. But up close, I could see the cracks in his perfect facade, the worry lines around his eyes, the way his hands shook slightly when he thought I wasn't looking. "Public humiliation?" I said. "Rick, I haven't even gotten started yet." His confident expression faltered. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I know things. About you, about Anna, about what you've really been up to." "I don't know what you think you know." "I know about the hotel rooms. Plural. Not just 3 weeks ago, but going back months. I know about the jewelry you've been buying her. I know about the apartment you've been looking at together, and I know about the other women." Rick went very still. "What other women?" I smiled. "You really think Anna was the only married woman you've been screwing around with? This is a small town, Rick. People talk, and some of those people have very angry husbands." It was a bluff, but Rick's face told me I'd hit close to home. "You don't know anything," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Don't I? Tell me, does Anna know about Jennifer Walsh, the one whose husband is deployed overseas? Or what about Sarah Chen, the bank manager? I bet her husband would be very interested to know where she's been spending her lunch breaks." Rick's face had gone pale. "You're fishing." "Am I? Then you won't mind if I share my suspicions with their husbands, just to clear the air." "You bastard!" "That's rich, coming from you." I wiped my hands on a shop rag and stepped closer to him. Here's what's going to happen, Rick. You're going to leave Anna alone. You're going to stop trying to control the narrative about what happened between us, and you're going to accept that your reputation in this town is about to take a serious hit. And if I don't, then I start making phone calls. And trust me, you don't want that. Rick stared at me for a long moment, probably trying to figure out how much I actually knew versus how much I was guessing. Finally, he turned and walked back to his car. This isn't over, he called out. You're right, I said. It's not. After Rick left, I called Mrs. Hutchins. She answered on the first ring, probably because she'd been watching the whole confrontation from her window. That was quite a show, dear, she said. Mrs. Hutchins, remember how you mentioned your bridge club? Of course. When's the next meeting? Thursday night? Why? I think it's time I learned how to play bridge. Mrs. Hutchins laughed. Oh, this should be interesting. That evening, I drove to Anna's apartment. I wasn't planning to talk to her. I just wanted to see if Rick's car was there. It wasn't, but something else caught my attention. Anna was loading boxes into her Honda Civic, and she wasn't alone. A woman I didn't recognize was helping her. I parked across the street and watched. The woman was young, maybe mid-20s, with short blonde hair and an expensive handbag. She moved like someone who was used to giving orders, and Anna was clearly deferring to her. I took out my phone and snapped a few photos, then called Tommy. Can you meet me at the bar? I need you to look at something. 20 minutes later, I was showing Tommy the photos on my phone. Do you recognize her? I asked. Tommy studied the screen. Yeah, that's Melissa Brennan, Rick's younger sister. She lives in Boston, works for some big marketing firm. What's she doing here? Probably damage control. The Brennan family doesn't like scandals. If Rick's affair is becoming public knowledge, they'll want to manage the fallout. I thought about that. The Brennans were one of the oldest families in Millbrook. They owned half the commercial real estate in town and had connections throughout New England. If they were bringing in professional help to manage this crisis, it meant they were taking it seriously. Tommy, I said, how well do you know the other bartenders in town? Pretty well. Why? I need to know where Rick's been spending his time, who he's been talking to, what he's been saying. Tommy looked uncomfortable. Jake, I don't like where this is going. Where what is going? This whole revenge thing, it's getting out of hand. I leaned back in my chair. Tommy, Anna cheated on me for months. She lied to me, used me, and let her family destroy my reputation. Rick helped her do it, probably thinking it was funny to humiliate the stupid mechanic. And now they want to make this all go away like it never happened. So what? You got your revenge. Everyone knows the truth now. The truth isn't enough. I want them to understand what it feels like to have your life turned upside down by someone you trusted. Tommy was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he said, What do you need? Over the next 3 days, I gathered information like a detective building a case. Tommy's network of bartenders and waitresses provided a steady stream of intelligence about Rick's movements and conversations. Mrs. Hutchins and her bridge club gave me access to the town's gossip network, and my own observations filled in the gaps. What I learned was fascinating. Rick wasn't just having an affair with Anna, he was also seeing at least 2 other women, just like I'd suspected. Jennifer Walsh, whose husband was deployed in Afghanistan, and Sarah Chen, the bank manager whose marriage was already on shaky ground. Rick was apparently collecting unhappy wives like some kind of hobby, but more importantly, I learned that Rick's real estate business was in trouble. He'd been using his charm and family connections to hide the fact that several of his recent deals had fallen through. He owed money to investors, and his reputation for closing deals was starting to slip. Anna, meanwhile, was planning to leave town entirely. The boxes I'd seen her loading weren't for a move across town. They were for a move to Boston, where Rick's sister had apparently offered her a job at the marketing firm. They were planning to run away together, leaving behind the mess they'd created. That's when I decided it was time to escalate things. On Wednesday night, I printed out everything I'd learned and put it all in a manila envelope. Photos of Rick's car at various women's houses, copies of the hotel receipts, a detailed timeline of the affair, financial records showing Rick's business problems that I'd obtained through a contact at the bank. Then I made copies and addressed them to Jennifer Walsh's mother-in-law, Sarah Chen's husband, and the 3 biggest gossips in town. But before I mailed them, I had one more stop to make. Margaret Whitman lived in a colonial mansion on Elm Street, the kind of house that screamed old money and social status. I rang the doorbell at 8 o'clock, knowing she'd be home from her evening yoga class. She answered the door in a silk robe, her face carefully made up despite the hour. Jake, she said, not bothering to hide her distaste. What do you want? I wanted to give you a chance to correct the record, I said, holding up one of the envelopes. before everyone else sees this. She looked at the envelope suspiciously. What is it? Evidence, photos, documentation, everything that proves Anna was cheating on me for months while you were telling everyone I was unstable. Margaret's composure slipped slightly. I don't know what you think you're proving. I'm proving that your daughter is a liar and a cheater, and that you helped her cover it up by destroying my reputation. I handed her the envelope. This is your copy. Everyone else gets theirs tomorrow morning. Unless, of course, you'd like to call the people you've been talking to and set the record straight yourself. Margaret took the envelope with shaking hands. You're blackmailing me. I'm giving you a choice. You can take responsibility for the lies you've been spreading, or you can let everyone see the evidence and draw their own conclusions. I turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Mrs. Whitman, you might want to ask Anna about her job interview in Boston. I think you'll find it very illuminating. I walked back to my truck, leaving Margaret standing in her doorway with the envelope in her hands. By tomorrow, the whole town would know everything, and Anna and Rick would finally understand what it felt like to have their lives destroyed by someone they'd underestimated. The game was almost over, and I was winning. Thursday morning, I didn't mail the envelopes. I hand-delivered them. Jennifer Walsh's mother-in-law, Dorothy, lived 2 streets over from me. I knocked on her door at 7 a.m., knowing she'd be up making coffee. Jake Morrison, she said, opening the door. What brings you by so early? I have some information I think you should see, Mrs. Walsh. About your daughter-in-law. Dorothy's expression darkened as she opened the envelope and saw the photos of Rick's Mercedes parked outside Jennifer's house at various times over the past month. That son of a bitch, she whispered. I'm sorry to be the one to tell you, I said, but I thought you should know before your son comes home from deployment. Dorothy nodded grimly. Thank you, Jake. Tom deserves better than this. My next stop was the bank. I waited in the parking lot until Sarah Chen's husband, David, arrived for his job at the hardware store next door. David, I called out, can I talk to you for a minute? David Chen was a good man who worked hard and loved his wife. Watching his face as he looked through the photos and receipts was one of the hardest things I'd ever done. But Sarah had made her choice when she decided to have an affair with Rick while her husband was working 60-hour weeks to support their family. I don't understand, David said quietly. We've been going to counseling. I thought things were getting better. I'm sorry, I said, but you needed to know. The last envelope went to Carol Brennan, Rick's aunt, and the town's most efficient gossip distribution system. I didn't need to explain anything to her. She understood immediately what she was looking at. Oh my God, she breathed. Rick is going to be ruined. Probably, I agreed. By 10 a.m., my phone was ringing constantly. Dorothy Walsh was calling everyone she knew. David Chen had confronted his wife at the bank, causing a scene that half the town witnessed. And Carol Brennan was working the phones like a campaign manager on election day. I turned off my phone and went to work, but I couldn't concentrate. Around noon, Tommy showed up at the shop. Jake, you need to see this, he said, holding up his phone. On the screen was a Facebook post from Margaret Whitman. I owe the community an apology. I have been spreading false information about Jake Morrison regarding the cancellation of his wedding to my daughter. The truth is that Anna was unfaithful to Jake with Rick Brennan, and Jake acted with dignity and integrity in ending their engagement. I was wrong to suggest otherwise, and I sincerely apologize for any damage to Jake's reputation. She actually did it, I said. It gets better. Look at this. Tommy scrolled to another post, this one from Jennifer Walsh's mother-in-law. Ladies of Millbrook, beware of Rick Brennan. This man is a predator who targets married women while their husbands are serving our country overseas. He has been having an affair with my daughter-in-law while my son risks his life in Afghanistan. Rick Brennan is a disgrace to this community. And another, from David Chen. To anyone considering doing business with Rick Brennan of Brennan Real Estate, this man has no integrity. He destroyed my marriage and my family for his own selfish pleasure. I will be sharing this information with everyone I know. Holy shit, I whispered. It's everywhere, Tommy said. The whole town is talking about it. Rick's phone has been ringing nonstop. 3 of his current clients have already fired him. And Anna? What about Anna? She's at the gallery right now, cleaning out her desk. Dalton fired her this morning. I sat down heavily on a work stool. I'd wanted to expose the truth, to make Anna and Rick face consequences for what they'd done. But seeing it all play out in real time was overwhelming. There's more, Tommy said quietly. Rick's been trying to reach you. He called the bar looking for you. He sounded desperate. As if on cue, a black Mercedes pulled into my parking lot. Rick got out, but he looked nothing like the polished real estate agent who'd confronted me earlier in the week. His suit was wrinkled, his hair was disheveled, and his face was pale with exhaustion. "Jake!" he called out as he approached the garage. "We need to talk." "I think we've said everything we need to say," I replied, not looking up from the engine I was working on. "Please, just 5 minutes." There was something in his voice that made me look up. Rick Brennan, the golden boy of Millbrook, looked broken. "What do you want, Rick?" "I want you to call them off." "Call who off?" "Everyone. The whole damn town. My business is ruined. My family won't speak to me. Anna won't even take my calls." I set down my wrench and really looked at him. "And you think this is my fault?" "You orchestrated this whole thing." I told the truth, that's all. "You destroyed my life." The words hung in the air between us. Rick was breathing hard, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. "No," I said finally. "You destroyed your own life. You made the choice to have an affair with my fiancée. You made the choice to help her lie to me for months. You made the choice to have affairs with other married women. I just made sure people knew about it. Those women meant nothing to me. They meant something to their husbands." Rick ran his hands through his hair. "What do you want? Money? I'll pay you whatever you want. Just make this stop." "I don't want your money, Rick. I want you to understand something." I stepped closer to him, close enough to see the fear in his eyes. "You thought I was just some stupid mechanic, someone you could humiliate and walk away from. You thought my feelings didn't matter because I wasn't important enough to matter. But here's the thing about underestimating people. Sometimes they surprise you. I never meant... You meant exactly what happened. You wanted to take my fiancée and make me look like a fool while you did it. Well, congratulations. You got what you wanted. Anna chose you over me." Rick looked confused. "Then why?" "Because actions have consequences. Because treating people like garbage has a price. And because I wanted you to know what it feels like to have your life destroyed by someone you thought was beneath you." I walked back to my workbench, effectively dismissing him. "Jake, please, get out of my shop, Rick, and don't come back." After he left, I tried to go back to work, but my hands were shaking. I'd done what I set out to do. Anna and Rick were facing the consequences of their actions. The truth was out, and my reputation was restored. So why did I feel so empty? That evening, I drove to the lake where my father used to take me fishing when I was a kid. I sat on the dock and watched the sun set over the water, thinking about everything that had happened. My phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Anna. "I'm leaving town tomorrow. I know you probably don't care, but I wanted you to know that I'm sorry. For everything. You deserved better." I stared at the message for a long time, then deleted it without responding. Another text came in, this one from Tommy. "You okay? Haven't seen you since this afternoon." I typed back, "I'm fine, just thinking." "About what?" I looked out over the lake, watching the last light fade from the sky. "About whether revenge is supposed to feel this hollow," I typed, but I deleted that message before sending it. Instead, I wrote, "About what comes next." Because that was the real question, wasn't it? I'd gotten my revenge. Anna and Rick were ruined, just like I'd wanted. The truth was out, and everyone knew what they'd done to me. But what was I supposed to do now? I drove home through the quiet streets of Millbrook, past the gallery where Anna used to work, past the hotel where she'd betrayed me, past all the places that would forever remind me of what had happened between us. Tomorrow, Anna would leave town and start over somewhere else. Rick would try to rebuild his business and his reputation. Margaret Whitman would have to live with the consequences of her lies, and I would go back to my shop and my life, knowing that I'd won. But as I pulled into my driveway and saw Mrs. Hutchins watching from her window with a satisfied smile, I realized something important. Winning doesn't always feel like victory. Sometimes it just feels like the end of a story you never wanted to be part of in the first place. I turned off my truck and sat in the darkness for a moment, thinking about the man I'd been before all this started and the man I'd become in the process of getting my revenge. They weren't the same person, and I wasn't sure yet if that was a good thing or a bad thing. But it was done. Anna and Rick had learned that actions have consequences. The town knew the truth, and I had proven that even a stupid mechanic could destroy the lives of people who thought they were better than him. I got out of my truck and walked toward my house, leaving the wreckage of their lives behind me. It was time to figure out what came next.